Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about sex with Gemini, and yes, it does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Well, anyway, first thing I'll look at was sex with Gemini. Well, Gemini in sex doesn't always feel that deep, I guess you could say, that strong love and connection during their lovemaking. A lot of Gemini flings can be superficial. A lot of this is because Gemini is more a very strong, mentally motivated temperament. They really, in Gemini, as far as a sexual attraction goes, they often have to find somebody that is intellectually stimulating and somebody that could be at least close to their equal on an intellectual level. They love to have intellectual stimulation, great conversation, and really talk about a lot of different subjects. And Gemini can be very restless as well. And when you look at it, Gemini, even in bed, may do a lot of maneuvering because they're in a sexual situation. It's a sign that has a very difficult time in being stagnant. Now, Gemini may often be attracted to a sexual partner that, well, it could be mercurial, and also somebody that could be younger, or someone that has just a youthful countenance to them. Somebody that also, like them, could be somewhat lively, vivacious. They bring a lot of that vivacious, like energy into the bedroom, often very spirited. Gemini can be very animated and can have their enjoyment in sexual situations, but there is not as much emphasis on this with Gemini as opposed to many other signs. And Gemini really also, there's a thing with them about the persistent quality, I should say, lack of. Gemini could be more inclined to cheat, more so than most signs. Gemini is a dual sign, and it's a sign of the twins. And you think of the number 2, and you look at Gemini, and Gemini may often feel sometimes more comfortable when having somebody else on the side, so to speak. And this is not to say that Gemini is promiscuous or anything. And most Geminis, I'm sure, are not cheaters, but I think this sign does have a little bit greater propensity than most signs to do so, and even might be more inclined toward bisexuality, I believe, as well, due to the duality of the sign. I would say Gemini and Pisces would be the ones that come to mind as far as this goes. And Gemini's personality can be very flighty and fickle, and they don't like anything that becomes too monotonous or mundane or tedious. That is part of the reason why they have a hard time with a commitment as far as a sexual relationship goes. And as far as Gemini with the erogenous zones, well, this, of course, the arms, the hands, the fingers, they might really like to have their hands and fingers and arms caressed very often. That could be part of the foreplay for Gemini. Gemini is also a sign, when I look at Gemini, they are a sign really that is very diverse, and they could be the kind of person in the bedroom that may like to do sex in manifold ways and not do the same thing all the time consistently. They would not really probably get on too well with a Taurus or Capricorn personality, because Taurus and Capricorn, of course, they're more about consistency, stability, reliability, where Gemini could really have an aversion and an anathema to that. Gemini may not also want to be tied down, maybe even literally that much, as well as figuratively speaking, if you understand what I'm saying. And that is the thing as far as Gemini goes with sex. And Gemini too, though, when they're committed, though, you could have somebody for a very sustained period, but it's often hard to get Gemini to be pinned down to that one particular sex partner. I thought it was interesting one time when I lived in New York. I had a friend there, and one time he had a girlfriend confront him one time about a liaison that she was suspicious of him having with, as far as she was suspicious of him having a liaison with another woman, and she confronted him regarding it. And he responded something like, we fooled around, and he just kind of blew it off. And he has Gemini rising. I thought that was interesting. That could be sometimes a typical Gemini remark in a situation like that, because they often just don't take the romantic or sexual relationships always as seriously as the average sign would, and not like, say, like a Taurus, for example, or Scorpio type personality, because Gemini can be very fickle, very flighty, very changeable. They go on whims. They could have thinking one thing 1 minute, and then they could be infatuated with somebody 1 minute, and then the next minute they could be very apathetic. And it's just their changes in their thought process very often. Their changes can go very rapidly. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for sex with Gemini. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be talking about sex with the zodiac sign Cancer. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.